In recent weeks, David Fincher's classic neo-noir horror Seven has enjoyed a remastered theatrical release to coincide with its 30th anniversary. The psychological thriller explores the darkest depths of human depravity through a gruesome serial killer narrative. Written by Andrew Kevin Walker, the film follows detectives William Somerset, played by Morgan Freeman, and David Mills, played by Brad Pitt, as they investigate a series of murders based on the 7 deadly sins: gluttony, greed, sloth, lust, pride, envy and wrath. The killer, John Doe, played by Kevin Spacey, enacts these punishments to expose what he sees as society's moral and spiritual decay. The movie is currently enjoying a remastered re-release. On retrospective viewing, the film seems to have a timelessness in terms of aesthetic and even fashion, and its central message that enables it to hold up some 30 years later. The film is shot in such a stylish or perhaps styleless way that it holds no resemblance to an actual 90s movie, and so, on viewing of the re-release, there is almost a surreal feeling of watching perhaps a new movie in the cinema, but also of watching the actors rejuvenated to the youthful peak of their careers. Production saw David Fincher's transition into a fully fledged auteur with this dark, psychologically intense thriller that showcased his signature visual style, meticulous attention to detail, and thematic preoccupation with obsession, morality, and human depravity. After his troubled experience directing Alien 3 in 1992, where he had had little creative control and much studio interference, Seven marked his emergence as a director with a distinct vision. The film's bleak atmosphere, innovative storytelling, and haunting ending demonstrated Fincher's ability to blend noir influences with modern cynicism, setting the stage for his continued exploration of crime, power, and human frailty in later films like Fight Club in 1999 and Zodiac in 2007. His fascination with dark and foreboding themes carried on into films like Gone Girl and his English language interpretation of the Scandi noir The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, with its sarcastic, even cynical tagline of the feel-bad movie of Christmas. Seven remains one of the most influential psychological thrillers of all time, continuing to shape modern cinema while maintaining its unsettling critique of moral decay. Nearly 3 decades after its release, the film's impact can be measured in both its cinematic innovations and its enduring discursive relevance. Despite changes in filmmaking techniques and shifting societal concerns, Seven still resonates because it taps into a fundamental truth: human depravity and systemic corruption persist, and the existential despair it portrays remains as relevant today as it was in the mid-1990s. John Doe's killings are his attempt to awaken society to its sins, believing that people have grown indifferent to their own corruption. His victims, each representing a deadly sin, are chosen to highlight excess, vanity, and moral negligence. While Doe is clearly a monster, the film subtly suggests that his perspective, though horrifying, is not entirely without foundation. This moral ambiguity forces the audience to confront unsettling questions about justice, punishment, and whether society itself fosters the conditions for such evil. Beyond its cinematic brilliance, Seven continues to resonate because its critique of moral decay, desensitization to violence, and systematic apathy remains frighteningly relevant. The film presents a world where justice is unattainable, law enforcement is ineffective, and evil is not just an anomaly but an intrinsic part of the social fabric. In many ways, modern audiences may find Seven even more relevant now than it was when first released. John Doe's killings, designed to expose humanity's complacency towards sin, eerily parallel contemporary anxieties about social media-fueled vanity, corporate greed, and a widespread indifference to suffering. The grotesque nature of his murders reflects a world where spectacle overshadows substance, a critique that feels prophetic in an era dominated by sensationalized media coverage, true crime obsession, and performative outrage. In 1995, John Doe's crimes were horrifying. In 2025, they feel disturbingly familiar in a society that consumes tragedy as entertainment. Even though Alien 3 was gruesome, Seven heralded Fincher as a director who more often than not created an atmosphere of foreboding and dread, not through gratuitous violence as such, but in depicting the aftermath of a heinous crime while foreshadowing the inevitability of a follow-up murder. Seven employs a deeply psychological and philosophical form of horror rather than relying on traditional jump scares or supernatural elements, or even gratuitous violence. Its horror is derived from a number of factors: the atmosphere and the setting, the unseen violence, the inevitable doom, and the moral horror. The oppressive, rain-drenched city feels like a purgatory where suffering is constant, reflecting both physical and moral decay. Unlike many horror films, Seven rarely shows the murders directly. Instead, it forces the audience to imagine the horror through the detective's reactions, making it even more disturbing. From its opening credits, Seven feels like a march towards unavoidable tragedy. Its ending, where Doe manipulates Mills into embodying wrath by murdering him, suggests that evil is inescapable and self-perpetuating. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of Seven is its ethical horror, the suggestion that justice is impossible in a corrupt world. The final twist, where Mills' wife is killed as part of John Doe's plan, leaves the audience with a sense of despair rather than catharsis. Furthermore, the contrast between Somerset and Mills feels even more prescient today. Somerset's world-weary cynicism mirrors the growing disillusionment with institutions and the justice system, while Mills represents the naive belief that individual action can change a fundamentally broken system. Their dynamic reflects ongoing debates about whether meaningful justice is possible, or whether, as Somerset ultimately suggests, the only rational response is withdrawal. This dilemma is more relevant than ever in the face of increasing political disillusionment and institutional failures. One of Seven's most haunting aspects is its use of horror, not in a supernatural sense, but in its existential dread. The film presents evil not as an aberration, but as an inevitable consequence of societal neglect and moral ambivalence. In today's post-truth era, where misinformation, extremism, and moral absolutism are rampant, the film's themes take on a new significance. John Doe's twisted logic that his murders serve a higher moral purpose feels disturbingly similar to modern radicalization narratives, where individuals commit atrocities under the belief that they are correcting societal wrongs. Moreover, Seven's final message, "The world is a fine place and worth fighting for," I agree with the second part, captures a sentiment that is more relevant than ever. The film does not offer solutions, nor does it suggest that evil can be eradicated. Instead, it leaves viewers with the unsettling realization that the cycle of violence, vengeance, and despair will continue, a sentiment that rings true in a world still grappling with systematic injustice and moral ambiguity. One might even detect a Christian message hidden in the subtext, the notion that a cycle of violence cannot be broken with violence, but rather with forgiveness and turning the other cheek. Both Somerset and Mills imbue this sentiment at opposing points in their character arc's trajectory, but this is cleverly upended and flipped over 180 degrees in the film's sickening gut punch of a denouement. Unlike many thrillers of its era, Seven has not merely aged well, it has matured, deepening in relevance as society confronts the very issues it dissected nearly 30 years ago. Its cinematic style remains influential, its storytelling techniques continue to inspire filmmakers, and its thematic concerns have only become more urgent. As long as society remains plagued by injustice, violence, and apathy, Seven will continue to hold a mirror to the darkness that lurks within. It is not just a film that has endured, it is one that has become more necessary. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for notifications. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.